call this meeting to order. Peter, pledge allegiance. Just two flags. Let's bow our heads. Excited to celebrate the season.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. To this meeting of the Jackson County Board of Education, we'll discuss the business and financial needs of the district. Ron will enter into executive session to discuss legal personnel. This time, we'll be consent agenda items.
Chairman, I would like to propose the following items of the items consent agenda. Section 8, items D 2 through 8, 10 and 11. E 1 through 3, F 1C and 2A, I 1 through 4, J 1 through 4, K 1 through 4, and 6 through 16.
For consent agenda in form of motion, second. Peterson, all in favor? And next, we have the sheet of work officers. This time, we'll entertain nominations for the position of chief.
Chairman, I would like to nominate. Chairman.
All in favor? Nominations for the position of vice chair. Motion for Johnson as vice chair. All in favor? Four no. And for the position of secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Mr. Howard.
All in favor? Six, tonight's agenda. Motion to make a motion to approve item. Motion by Ms. Pearson. I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
Second by Ms. Dobson. Discussion. I'd like to make a motion to amend item 8E3 to remove controversy from last resignation. Okay. Motion to remove Scott Grisham from resignations.
Second.
Further discussion on tonight's agenda? All in favor of tonight's agenda? Minutes, Jack, review of no minutes. Motion to approve November 14th meeting minutes. Motion by Mr. Powell. Second by?
Second.
Peterson. All in favor? abstains?
While we just received our certificate from the state regarding our aid, while we did celebrate that for a couple months, and I am very proud of the leadership team and the Board of Education and our achievement there. And part of my leadership team, it's moving forward. It's very quickly testing is upon us, and the items in which we will be evaluated next year are upon us. And so, how do we go from our highest accountability score to get even better? How do we go from no rating history to become even better? Is the question we have before us. And a lot of athletic programs will vary according to the town. Some, if you have the same program, do the same thing each year, your level of success will vary according to the town and the students. We feel we can do better. So again, I thank the board and the community for supporting the consolidation, because it is allowing us, like we're doing right now with one of our particular schools, where we feel there needs to be extra focus. It allows us to have that focus and best practices in the areas of instruction and operations. And so, with that said, I'll turn it over, first of all, to Dr. Shea. We'll go over the instruction and curriculum area, and then to Mr. Baggett for operations.
All right, so I'm going to cover the three areas that I'm over now. Curriculum, as far as curriculum update goes, we are in the midst of transitioning from Dr. Westfall, who officially retires at the end of this month, to Dr. Soge, who is going to assume that position on January 2nd. So we're in the midst of transitioning her into that role. Some of the staff has changed. We had one of the instructional coaches that has taken an assistant principal position at Vancouver Lower. Another instructional coach has chose to go to a different route. He's going to be working for one of the companies, Renaissance. So we are restructuring a little bit in the curriculum department. Currently, we're conducting the second benchmark test, which is that common assessment that we give across the district to kind of gauge where our students are at this point. So we'll be working, gathering that data, sharing that with the schools, the PLCs. They'll start to disaggregate that when we come back from the holidays and determine where we need to really focus working on with our students. We have a guest speaker that will be coming around and scheduled to go to each attendance center on January 2nd. It's our teacher work day. This was provided by the curriculum department. Has a 1-hour presentation at each attendance center. That's been scheduled, and we have the locations there at the high school in the gyms. And that is on the books to go forward. And then the professional development, the schedule, Kessler Science, is on January 12th. So that's kind of curriculum, the highlights of what we have going on there in the midst of all the transitioning and changing. As far as special education goes, our December 1st count was 1,263 students that are identified as special ed students, approximately 60 to 70 more than we had maybe towards the beginning of last month. So our numbers in special ed are growing exponentially. And because of this, we're running into some staffing issues, and it's causing us to re-look at how we're using our PBISs. The PBISs were placed one at each school, probably not as well thought out as it should have been, but it was new to us, so we are now restructuring East Central. For example, I've met with the principals there. They'll be going down to one PBIS. We're going to take one of the PBISs that is over there and bring them over to St. Martin Middle School and focus where the need is. Now, the PBISs were initially placed because of CCEIS, which was basically saying we were over-identifying African-American male students as far as discipline. They were being disciplined disproportionately. Well, we don't have a lot of African-American students at East Central. We don't have a whole lot in Vancouver. They're here in St. Martin. So we're moving the resources, we're reallocating them to meet the needs of that criteria. And under CCEIS, we're required to reevaluate as we go through it and make changes accordingly. So That's the process that we're in right now. We're also going to take 2 of the positions at the Central that were currently vacant. We're not going to refill them. Dr. Williams is working on the paperwork from the federal program side. We're going to reallocate that money to hire some more psychometrists so we can go through the re-eval process and test our special ed students a little more quicker to get them in or out of the program if they no longer need those services. And then as far as federal programs goes, the FY23 title application has been approved for all 7 of the elementary schools and all of our school-wide programs. And so the schools have started to execute those programs that they had on their plan to begin with. We're still waiting for the FY23 SIG allocations for the 5 ATSI and the ATSI and the TSI schools. And we will begin again in January getting a report from the principals to kind of share their data with you. So that will be coming again next month. And then we are wrapping up our fall testing for this first half of the year. And so by the end of this week, we will have wrapped up testing for the first half of the year. So that's kind of the curriculum, special ed, and federal programs, student services. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Kayla, finance editor.
Good evening. On the finance side, you can see there we are projecting a drop in general fund balance from 16.1 to 15.7%. What that means is we're projecting $3.2 million in excess fund balance still at June 30, 2023. You can see the capital balance there did not change much from last month. And just a reminder, again, this does not include any transfers that we have scheduled in the budget. It doesn't only occur for those that are newer in February, March, or April. Month 2 and 3, 88 update. Just a refresher. Our NAP funding is primarily based on the months of October and November enrollment and attendance data. NDE turns that ADA, average daily attendance. For us in month 2, we were looking pretty good. I was projecting a $700,000 increase in NAP funding based off of the increased enrollment, and we had pretty good attendance. That dropped substantially in November, and now we're looking at flat or a slight decline in NAP funding, solely due to ADA. So the State Board of Education will meet Thursday at 10 a.m. and supposedly we should have initial projections of what that full funding and amount looks like. So that will help us with staffing issues, which is kind of good to point to here. Prior to any data that's released Thursday, we're looking at 18 teacher units as far as reduction for next year. Things could come out, that's probably worst case scenario. So things could come out Thursday, and they may show where there's maybe another $500,000 or $1 million, then those numbers are going to change significantly. The goal is still to get the principals their numbers by Friday before we report.
And by the way, attendance, the way life works, right? Our count months we're down with the flu. Everything that's been going around, but our attendance is right back up. So we're happy attendance is back up, but it's just funny how life works. The months that the state takes the count goes down, and it is that it was. We started strong and it's strong again. So just so you know, attendance is back up. We went through that, whatever it was, cold flu season, and it works.
And I think that's a good point. It probably impacts most of the state. So what we're probably end up seeing is that base student cost number get adjusted upward to reflect the statewide reduction in ADA. But until that number is released Thursday, we really don't know yet. And then my last update, more grant funding, more federal funding coming down for schools. There's a Department of Energy grant, 2 actually, one's a grant, one's a prize. The prize is on the smaller side, it's $100,000 for 25 school districts across the country to basically train energy managers within the district. On top of that, in phase 2, those same districts can get another $50,000. The bigger opportunity, the new American Schools grant, is $80 million. Each individual grant will be from $500,000 to $15 million. and that can be used towards healthier learning environments, I think HVAC projects, reducing carbon emissions, think electric vehicles, electric buses, lowering utility costs, think LED upgrades, which we already talked about last couple of months, that we're already moving forward with. And the whole goal is to redirect these funds to support students and teachers. So lots of money out there. That particular one, that larger one, there's a concept paper. It's due January 26. I'm in the very beginning phase of looking into that. My gut is not a lot of districts are going to go for it. So just like that Volkswagen money, if I get an idea, to go for it. Any questions?
You know, right, that's just a reminder for our community that watches the board meetings. I know we discussed it last month when we went over finances. I want to make sure our community knows the reductions we are making up and down the road. We could live off that equity a couple of years even, and it could be business as usual. But we do feel strongly we need to continue to put money into capital funding, not only for capital projects, but also when the power plant is decommissioned. And so I want to continue to keep that out there to our community. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but that's $6 million less in 4 more years, correct? Yes. So that I'm just saying this for people that watch this, because someone might ask, you have that fund equity and you're making cuts. It would make sense to them. But we're doing this for the future because, again, you eventually run out of money if your revenues and expenditures do not at least match up. And so I just want to point that out. And then the energy savings, it takes time. Mr. Beggett's going to be presenting a project we're going to start with that's going to save us tremendous money, but it's over time. That's where we use fund equity while that savings is being realized. And so thank you for, I know we've already reviewed this, but I want to keep that out in front of the community of why we're making these reductions. Now it's for the future of our schools. Okay. All right, Mr. Beggett.
Yep. 4 things I'd like to discuss tonight under discussion items. The first one is the St. Martin High School baseball facility update. As you saw today on the tour, we have to tear down the dilapidated FEMA trailer/restroom that has been used probably for the past 12 years. It's put us to a point now where we had gone with a group and toured the Biloxi facility. That was a restroom/concession stand. And Brad graciously drew up a model of what that would look like. This is for the future. Okay? And you can see from the drawings what it would look like with our current bleachers, as well as in the future when those bleachers are removed and we put new chair backs in, what it would look like. Now, to build this facility, you're looking at probably a minimum of $1.5 million. It's going to take some time to design and build. In the meantime, we have needs right now. We're going to try to get by with what we have underneath the football stadium for the rest of the spring, but we have gone ahead and issued a service order to go ahead and expand those restrooms under the football stadium to be able to accommodate not only football for next year, as well as soccer, baseball, and all of the other sports that we have right there in that complex. And right now, we're looking at that cost is going to be about $750,000. But I know there have been questions, so we wanted you to see what Brad has drawn up, and it is beautiful. Just at this time, I don't know that we can afford it and/or because of the time constraints to it. But and you've seen the topography out there. To build this facility, you can see we're going to have to build up on chain wall. There's going to be a lot of earthwork, as well as electrical and other things. It's going to be a very in-depth project to do that. In the meantime, though, we are going to go ahead and renovate the restrooms under the stadium so that we have them ready to go, hopefully, by the start of football season next year. That's our
Very hopefully.
Yes, but that's our goal.
Yes.
We have to have goals, and that's our goal, to have them ready by the start. Any questions on that?
Where's the funding coming from?
We got service for it, so I'm assuming it will come out of construction.
Yeah, the construction contract, that's correct. And it's been pointed out several times that as part of our renovating restrooms, that is a restroom that we did need to pick back up, correctly from all once the bottom failed. because it was going to be part of the bond project. Once it failed, we needed to pick up our restroom renovations. And so correct me if I'm wrong, that's.
Mr. Peterson, initially, St. Martin was the first one that was going to grade bathrooms. These restrooms were going to be addressed in the bond. The bond didn't pass. After the bond did not pass, East Central and Vanderbilt had restroom renovations at their athletic facilities. We found out afterward that St. Martin had not gotten that, so now we're going back to address the athletic restroom facilities out there.
So it's a 700,000 for an addition or just the renovation?
It's going to be an expansion. So right now, each of those restrooms,
Existing restrooms, I mean,
the existing restrooms that are there in the stadium right now can't even accommodate what we have out there. And as soon as we break ground, we have to get ADA compliant. So this is going to be renovate and expand the restrooms that are there in the current football stadium. Second thing, energy saving project. St. Martin High School, as you'll see tonight when you go out, we have 55 lights here, over half of them are out in our parking lot. So, talking to Ryan and to Dwayne, we saw this as a perfect opportunity. This is low-hanging fruit. Go ahead and convert over from the metal halogens that even Chancellor Electric, when they were out here last week, called energy hogs. These are lights that run 24/7, burn a tremendous amount of energy. Actually, Dwayne called me while we were on the tour to replace the 55 lights out here. It would cost approximately $38,000 to buy the bulbs. All we would have to do then is rent a lift. We're going to replace them in-house along with the photo cell so that they are only operating during the nighttime. They won't be on during the daytime like they currently are. And they will burn a lot less energy than we're currently burning here at the high school. So that's a project. Told us to come back and see y'all when we saw what we felt like was in need, attainable. This is one I think we'll get a great return on because right now these lights are burning 24/7 and they are going out. They burn a lot of energy. So to me, it makes sense to go ahead and replace them with the LED fixtures. We're going to do it in-house.
again, this was part of our we had a long-term plan as far as finance savings that Ryan presented. This is an example where you have fund equity, what I was just talking about, where fund equity can be used because of savings you realize. But according to Mr. Begg and talking to Dwayne, we're going to see the savings pretty quickly on that parking lot. We also may move on a project at the business office, correct, Ryan? So we may not see the savings quite at the rate that we're going to see at the high school. But again, that's what the fund equity is for, is to pay the upfront cost for these projects, but then the long-term savings is going to be substantial.
The bulbs are going to have to be replaced anyway. Even if we go back to the metal halogens, it just makes sense right now to go ahead and convert it over to LED. We're going to recoup our money much, much quicker, as well as we're going to do it in-house. We're going to buy the material ourselves. Our people are very capable of doing it. We're going to save money doing it that way. We'll get it done much quicker.
So do we have, you're going to bring that to the chamber.
That's right. But I just wanted to make you aware of it before we go. Heading forward with any of these LED projects. I think that's what y'all asked in the last meeting, was to bring them to y'all each time we felt like we saw something that we could do. The third one is the ECAC bleacher update. As you know, we have a PO out for the bleachers being built right now. Today at about 12:15, we had a bid opening for the concrete demolition and pouring of the footings, as well as the sidewalk getting to it. We got a bid that we felt good about. It's a local vendor that we've dealt with before, so that's on the bid. Being agenda for later tonight, so we're hoping y'all are going to accept that bid. We feel good about it and meeting the timeline that we wanted to of having both field bleachers ready for the start of the season, both the softball and baseball. And then last but not least, summer roofing projects. We've been collecting this money knowing that we have roofing projects coming up. Wayne and I have walked through all of the facilities multiple times, looking at the conditions of them, as well as using John and Tana's Roofing project recommendation. We agree with their recommendation right now. We would like to move forward next month with the service order to go ahead and start roof replacements for both St. Martin North and St. Martin East. Those are the two roofs that most need that we feel like, and it matches what John Patano said. So we will be bringing in, Ryan feels comfortable with going ahead and moving forward with two roofs to hopefully go ahead and get started for this summer. So we'll be bringing that to you next month as well. Any questions on that? Okay. The other things that I have on there are just FYI updates.
Okay, that's it. Any questions on that? Updates? Okay, transportation. Believe it or not, it's taken an effort, but I've probably ridden probably 15, 20, maybe more 20 buses at this point. And again, we're looking, and I want to emphasize this because it can be a very sensitive issue. Board of Education just heads up. Whenever you change something with transportation, it can be very sensitive. And so the changes that we're looking to make, I want to emphasize, would be for the 23-24 school year, and even then only if we're ready. And I will share this with you. Why you would think we could just look at spreadsheets, data, and so on, talk to administrators, riding these buses and talking to these bus drivers. What I'm learning about our county and the different transportation systems is unbelievable, and what I've learned from the students. For example, we have a route that some of our students in East Central are on. I think hour 20, you have to get on the bus before 6 a.m. And then they're on the bus until after 5 o'clock in the evening. That is an example. So I get a chance to talk to kids. You feel like you got to be home until it starts to get dark or start in the morning. And I also talk to the bus drivers. And also comparing them with East Central. Having the one route and multiple routes. Again, talking to the bus drivers, I'm learning quite a bit. So I want to let the board know I am moving on that issue, but I'm taking my time. I'm going to be very careful and make sure I've done a lot of listening from the people that are out there doing the job. So I'll keep you posted. I'm not putting that off. In the meantime, with the software, Michael has been, he's been using the software, Michael?
No, well, right now, we're still at the point where we've turned our data over to them.
Okay.
They're disaggregating,
I didn't know
putting
if you
together.
meant
Coming up here soon, we'll be having a second meeting.
And my point there is we are moving forwards in the different areas as far as looking at the expenses, learning the software, and making sure we have the data ready. But I'm just saying we're going to be very careful how we move into changing transportation systems. And I want to make sure our community and bus drivers hear that.
So software that we purchased, tell me how that works. Put it on buses and we track them, go and data will be turned over to
Depending on how we want to do it. So first thing they have to do is they get all our student information. Then from there they get geosync information from the county for addresses and things, and they will put it into their software system. Then from there, depending on how we want to do it, they can decide it for a single tier route, 2-tier route, 3-tier route, and show us different things. From there, you can add features of, if we wanted to, I've done this in other districts, my child rides the bus. A lot of times you don't know exactly when the bus is going to come. You can set parameters to within 5 minutes when that bus will be coming to your stop. I generally like to keep it open to about 15 minutes so people can't track exactly where a bus is and follow them around. But then in the afternoons, the same way. It's going to let me know if I wanted to as a parent, look on there and see at about 4:15, my child's going to be dropped off at their stop, so I'll know ahead of time if they are. It can be lots. When you got parents that are calling in complaining that this bus was going 75 miles an hour down the interstate, you can go back and look at the timeline and see exactly how fast that bus was going and where it was going. Dealt with that all the time.
Okay, child nutrition.
Child nutrition, as you know, last month we had MDE as well as the Office of Healthy Schools come down to do it's a big audit. We had a great tour of the central office, the high school over at East Central, and St. Martin Middle School, as well as Bainley Upper Elementary. The on-sites went well. We're just waiting to hear back with them and do the final exit interview. I was hoping it would be done by now. They still haven't completed their part, but as soon as they get it back to us, we'll let you know how it goes. As you know, with any audit, they're going to come in and find something. That's their job. We will address it as quickly as possible. But Ms. Harris and her group did a fantastic job. They were very complimentary of her and the paperwork that she had to do ahead of time to make it flow very well. So her and her groups did a fantastic job. So I'm looking forward to the results. As you can see, our frame reduced came down just slightly. We're sitting right at 54%. Athletics is up after Christmas time. We're working with Ms. Bessason and HR on doing spring drug testing for our students. We don't want to tell exactly when and how many students we're going to be doing as part of the protocol. You're not supposed to be doing that. So just to let you know, here in the springtime, we will be doing drug screening for all of our students that are involved in extracurricular activities, as well as the ones that drive to and from school, part of our campus.
Regarding extracurricular outcomes, and I'm going to talk often about what's going to do a district of 3 with board education and leadership team. And this book here, you considering my 4 college degrees, I've learned more from this book, and Brian, I really want to thank you again for pushing me to read this, of how I look at how we're spending money in schools. Even how we prioritize what we're teaching or what our priorities are with reading and course subjects, how I look at scheduling, professional development, and so on. Considering extracurricular outcomes, for example, tonight, robotics teaching. We have some robotics and clubs and organizations that are science-based like that have several kids that participate, that are spending several weekends doing that, and they're not getting any money for that at all, whether they went with a fundraiser. Or drama, for example. The drama program here is second to none in Twin Stadium, and yet it's not funded. And even this book, believe it or not, you wouldn't think that you think it's just on finance. I can't wait for you to read it. It's got me to look at that even differently. What is the return on investment? So I have a football team with 60 athletes, with 8 coaches that cost X amount of dollars. I have a robotics team that maybe has 40 kids involved, and then if I take the return of investment and try to tie that to academic gaming, where are we investing money and what are we getting? And so I wanted the board to know that, again, what I started off with tonight, with this update, is sincere. It's not just some fancy words. If we really want to go from where we are, we're one of the top districts around the state. If we really want to go higher than that, we're getting down to the details. And I think one of those details is our extracurricular activities. Where are we spending money and what are we getting from it? We really need to start analyzing that. And this really has really taught me, between this book and even working with Ryan, of how to look at things a little bit more analytically, not so emotional, of what we're getting for our dollars. And so I want you to know that that's the next level. We're going to start looking at that. High school scheduling. It has a little chapter here on scheduling, and it's really going to be a common sense thing that I'm going to mention to you tonight. Why wouldn't I go and look at some of the top school districts in the country, even with relative social economic than us, but then maybe achieve a lot more than we do even with the same social economic? And why wouldn't I see how they do their scheduling, for example, how they do their high school scheduling, and so on, and maybe hire a consultant to come in and look at our scheduling and how we're doing things. So I didn't want to mention to you as well that we're going to start digging into these details like that, because it does matter. And what are the best school districts in the country doing? Again, same social economic picture, so it's apples to apples. What are they doing? And that's one area that we're going to look at. Is scheduling. Who are the experts K-5, middle school, high school? Pay them to come in and say, look, and the thing that they would bring to the table is not emotional. It's not personal to them. the names don't mean anything to them on the different programs. They would just be coming in and saying, here's what you have, here's some options. So I want to let you know we're going to start digging into this, because again, we don't have much time as a leadership team, and myself as superintendent. We're working on next year's accountability right now. So again, while we celebrate that, we need to move forward. Those are the details that we're looking at, things like that. Okay, next slide.
Building security. This past week, on Monday, I had a call from Agent Grimes with Department of Homeland Security. He was wanting to come and tour our schools and do a national Homeland Security survey in all of our schools. So I accommodated him, and we took 3 days last week, and we toured every school. The principals walked with us. We reviewed our safety plan. We're impressed with that. And I asked him, what prompted you to do this? And he said, the Commissioner Cheney with the state is wanting to collect data from our schools here in the state to see how we grade out nationally. And he told me, he said, and I was hoping these surveys would be in tonight, but they're not. We'll get them to you soon. He said, you're going to fail miserably in a lot of these areas. It's like, really? I said, we try to do a good job because do any of your schools have magnetometers? Well, no, we don't have that. What about X-ray machines? No, we don't. He said, these are the kind of questions that are on this national survey, and not just you, every school in Mississippi will fail. So the reason he said the commissioner is wanting to gather this information is so that he can make a recommendation to the state legislatures on getting funding to schools for security purposes. But then to also, from the state standpoint, possibly develop our own rubric of what schools should be looking for from a safety standpoint. Like you said, y'all aren't like Los Angeles or Chicago or wherever where they maybe need these certain things. So that's why the commissioner is looking to possibly try to tailor it. But so when we get these results, we'll do it. He saw a lot of things that we do really, really well. And then some areas that he pointed out that we knew already that we have to do some work on with fencing, things of that nature. So it was a really good tour. Our principals did a good job. We were very open and honest with him during the tour. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results and sharing with you when we come in. The other thing I would like to put on there, coming up in the near future, we would like to, and you've heard Dr. Stricker speak about our intercom situation in our schools. They are very, very bad. Some of our schools, they are so outdated you can't even get parts for them anymore. So he's directed Chris Collins and his team to go out and research and come back what it would cost to get an up-to-date, robust voice over IP system that could carry us not only for the next couple of years, but 10 years into the future. And a breakdown of it for all the schools in the district would be right at $1 million.
And I realize, and I'm not happy when a lot of people use the safety card to get something approved. I don't like it, because I see it happen a lot of times. They hang everything on. Well, it's a safety issue. There's no question in my 32 years that, and I'm sorry I assumed certain things. I assumed our intercom system would work, and I assumed our fire alarm system would work. We all know what the word assume means, and it's another case for me. And so this is a priority of mine. It is a core safety issue that if there were any type of emergency that I represent the district, that we have a solid intercom system that is working no matter what unforeseen emergency that can be. So this is a priority. Chris, I appreciate the work you and your staff have put into this, because I know it really puts some pressure on you to get those numbers. So we will be bringing a recommendation on that. I realize money's tight, and we had to prioritize, and I realize that Mr. Baker would like to work more with our roofs this summer, but this is a priority that is superintendent. I am saying it's a safety issue, and I'm not playing games with you to try to get you to improve it. We need operational intercom system. So, timeline on that, what was your next step on that intercom?
Talking to Ryan, this could come out of construction money. This is something that we feel urgent that we need to do. He'll go back up, Chris, he's got them, and You can see the cost of each one of the schools and what it's going to cost. There is a recurring cost with this new system and software. It's going to be about $45,000 for 3 years, about $15,000 a year. But this is a very reputable company that a lot of large districts throughout the state use as a very reliable system.
What's the recurring cost for?
So I want to say it's for support, Chris.
It's for the license. See this Fusion right here? That we get a 3-year license for that, and that's what actually causes the system to work. It's the license and that's what it's for.
So
And-
does it include any kind of what maintenance or upkeep would be for that 3-year period? It's just the license to use the.
So BCI is who we talk to get the quotes, and if they were to win the auction, they would support it, that section of it, while we have the license. But so it kind of goes hand in hand with that. One of the things about this system is a complete voice over IP system. So right now we have like Valcom in the schools. And Valcom is a true intercom system, right? If a teacher's in a classroom and something happens, well, they can call the front office. This one will be connected into a phone system, so they can actually call 911 from the classroom if they have to. Stuff like that. So, I mean, and it's scalable. So, I mean, we're starting out with 2-way speakers. Later on, we'll probably add phones to it and different stuff like that. And as our needs change, it's scalable to move. Whereas intercom systems, it's not. So,
In plain and simple, we can't get support for these systems we have in place. We're going to need to do something anyway, so certainly we want to have something scalable for the future, of course.
and as you can see, we've got 4 schools that are currently broken. So.
Any questions on that?
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at cutting positions, and I look at all the expenses that we've been talking about, we're up to $4 million. At some point, we're gonna have to prioritize, and definitely what is the most crucial. And I get that, intercom's nice, but there have to be other options. Surely, there are some, we can come up with something else, if we don't have the money for this. Schools are still providing walkie-talkies for teachers because they go out and do it. There are some things that we could look at before we cut 18 slots and get state-of-the-art other things. I'd rather us skimp on other things and keep teachers.
Anything else? One more thing that y'all. 2 things actually. I'd like to speak briefly on game security. This past month, we had a meeting with the Jackson County Sheriff's Reserves talking about game security. In case you haven't seen, it's not just here, but across the state and nation. You see a rash of irrational behaviors from parents and families. So we met and talked about to make sure we were on the same page of what expectations were and what our procedures were going to be. Since then, I've had each one of the ADs from each attendance center and their coaches for our winter sports have meetings with their parents so that they understand what the expectation is for behavior at games and what procedures and protocols are if they have concerns. So we have done that. Since then, we've also tightened up some of our access to our floor, locker rooms, things of that nature to make sure we don't have any in the future moving forward. Knock on wood, so far things are going good. That's not to say tonight or tomorrow something might not happen, but we are trying to be proactive, working with our parents and families on that. The other thing, Ms. Peterson, I'm glad you noticed today, we're changing up a lot of our signage letting them know what is allowed and what's not allowed when they're coming into our venues. And we've done a good job with that with the signage. We're looking forward to continue on in the springtime with that. Last but not least, you wanted to, I think Mr. Dickerson was one that was really adamant about baby detectors in the schools. Chris Collins, again, kudos to him and the team, have gotten us an estimate of what it would cost to do 70 bathrooms in just the high school and middle schools for baby detectors. It would be roughly $162,000 if we decide to move forward with that.
Does that come with some kind of software plus some devices?
It does. It comes with vape detectors and a camera that can, identify the student in the area. And if I'm not mistaken, that's for 5 years worth of license.
And you can also set it up to where when it goes off, it contacts the school administrator.
Yes.
And lets them know that it's going off so that they can quickly get to the area and or the cameras and review who has gone in or out of the restrooms before and after they go off.
So is it an audible alarm or is it silent?
It's silent. It's yes, sir.
I have a question for you. Homeland Security business, talking about safety issues. Did they mention, I think this is a super important as well for safety, rekeying the district?
He didn't mention rekey. He was glad to see that all of our facilities that aren't enclosed, where you can only come in and out the front door, all we have gone in the past, a lot of schools, because of the community that we live in, where it's a safe, trustworthy community, they kept those doors open. Most all schools now have gone to, and you saw it today, where those exterior hallways were kept closed and locked. He did comment on that, and he was glad to see that. Obviously, he would like to see a closed campus. If not that, at least a high fence, not even a 4-foot fence. They like to see like a 7.
I think what he's talking about is our key system. In my 32-year career, it's atrocious. We have no master key hierarchy system, let alone any type of other than administration. But
He would like to see the electronic entrance.
I would like to see that get research and bring numbers to us to say, hey, this is going to cost the district to do this at every school across the Tennessee.
we have a number to work off because that was the priority, if you remember, of mine personally, in the bond project. So we can update that because that is a safety issue. Where even you might see on the tour, there is no system of who has what keys.
We are going for multiple attendance.
Yeah.
I don't want to think of what that looks like or what your key ring looks like, but it's just a mess.
No
It's
system.
a mess for everyone.
We can really
One thing we need to do is if we do put the route rekeying, there needs to be a procedure for when new locks are put in, everything remains back to what was just rekeyed. Because if I'm not mistaken, we rekeyed the district at least once.
I don't know.
I mean, my thought process, this is just me. We get away from keys. You would badge in, and you would have software to say, hey, David Bagley has administration access, so you should be able to access any door. But this staff member at East Central can only access East Central.
Sure.
And it would, I mean, I foresee us having something like that.
And I've had it in other schools in other districts. And it also lets you know who's coming in and out of your buildings and at what time.
Yeah, you can track all.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it for my
The last slide, again, referring to the book, Amy Pearson was talking about it. Part of the in-depth study that it did was regarding class sizes and in relation to district expenditure. So I think all board members have a copy of this book. So I would suggest, Amy, if you get a chance over break, it starts on page 19 regarding managing existing class sizes. Because we are going to be maybe hundreds of school districts across the country that have the dilemma you just said. We need this, we need this, we need this, but we don't want to raise class size. This book has a whole chapter and not a chapter, but it's based off some of the top districts in the country and research about class size. So even that is addressed in here of the very dilemma. Because of course it's not unique. What you just said, board members across the United States probably said the literally time 50 times across this country. That we have all these needs, but I don't want to raise class size. So even that is addressed in here. So after we get the book read or within that, Mr. Ollie's going to set up some consultation with this district management council, with at least the core leadership team, and maybe any board members that would have time to actually, they will actually come in and help you. But first step is to read the book. But if you get a chance on the break, please at least read that chapter, because it addresses better than I can do right now the very, very common questions you have, which are mentioned. And other people. Yeah.
Brings us to the public comments.
Welcome back.
Here.
You can go wherever you want, or there if you need to.
Actually, I would just like to speak to two different policies. And the first one is the public access comment policy. I think that, my humble opinion, that 3 minutes is not long enough. You just sat there a policy that isn't that long. And I've been here for a while, and I don't know each time. And the information is mailed to you, through email. So that's the first thing. The second thing, with the policy, that is bothersome to me, as at the June 13th meeting, when Stalwart spoke publicly about an employee, and I have a problem with that. I mean, if you're talking about an employee, them not fulfilling their duties or something like that, I don't think it is something that should be said in a public meeting. I think it should be in executive session. So I would like to see that put in there if possible. And the other thing is the nepotism policy. I feel like it was changed only to accommodate a administrator to be able to hire his wife. And I think that policy should be changed to where it is not open for anybody to have a change made for a personal reason. So, that is, one of the things that, happen at this time. And, I hope that you will consider it and changing those policies. And, if you read your email, I sent each of you an email today. So, I appreciate that.
Can I respond to that?
Okay, moves us to item D1 on the agenda to discuss monthly financial reports. Discuss this month's financials. Questions? Item D9, authorize submission of 2022-2023 Mississippi Diesel School Bus Replacement Program application. Do I have a motion for 8D9? Motion by Ms. Peters. Second. Second by Mr. Powell. Discussion. How is this different than the electric school bus?
Good question. This one's, the electric school bus one was funded through the Volkswagen settlement for the diesel gauge or state got money, and then we got a big chunk of change in state money. This one is, the goal is similar to reduce our older diesel buses on the road. However, the funding is a lot different. This one will contribute up 25% of the cost to replacement of the bus. You could do diesel, you could do propane, you could do electric. But from a financial, just economic analysis standpoint, it doesn't make sense to pursue those routes. It really doesn't make sense to replace your diesel bus with a new diesel bus. And that's what I'm suggesting we do here. The reason why I'm forward is we budgeted 10 school buses in the budget this year. 6 of those are accounted for with the electric buses. We're contributing the same amount we spent on the diesel bus with those. Everything else is covered by the state. This year would be the other 4 of that 10. And it's just part of our bus replacement. So the goal here is to reduce the cost of the diesel bus by 25%. It's not guaranteed. It's submit your application, review it, prioritize, and make selection based off of that. So,
Are we limited to 10 buses?
no, I mean, you're limited to what's in your budget, right? So if you want, let's say hypothetically, we want to apply for 50. Well, the problem is you got to pay for 50 up front. So there is a financial limit to whatever's in your budget, or whatever you're borrowing money for to purchase those buses. For us, it's 10. We've already got 6 accounted for, so that only leaves 4. If we really wanted to dig into some fund balance, you obviously need to go back and budget, increase our operational by buses, but I'm not
How long will we expect to know if
It's like,
if we are successful, does it have to be spent in the spring, or could it be all of
if we have everything done by September 30th. Normally, you issue the PO as soon as you got the grant because the lead time on these buses is over.
all in favor? Item D12, approve new agreement with Ant Control Technologies for electric school bus charging optimization software. A motion for D12. Motion by Mr. Powell. Second by Ms. Thompson. Discussion.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about this agreement?
Yeah. So I can speak to the service, what it is. So when we get these 6 buses, obviously we're going to have to fuel them up. way you fuel them up, plug them into a charging station. Well, if any of you are familiar with electric tariffs, you've got to be very careful about how you go about doing that, or you're going to incur significant demand charges. So the idea here is, eliminate the complexity for the bus driver. You drive the bus, you plug it in, you're not driving. The software will manage when electricity begins getting dumped into the bus and when it stops, when it begins, when it stops. And it also will make sure that that bus is fueled up at the time that the drivers get in the bus the next morning and fire up. We dump in kind of like this power technology software. We dump in all the data, dump in the routes, how long is it, how much energy you're going to need, and the software will calculate how much that bus needs in terms of energy to make the route and come back, and not get stranded. And then the second piece, though, is to make sure you really optimize when the buses are charging. So if we're putting them on by vocational school, tapping into that meter, what you don't want is to fuel those buses up at the same time JCTC is firing up, running welding equipment, automotive equipment, and electrical lab. You don't want that. That's just going to drive electricity costs up. So what it does is it takes in the peak rates, it takes in that building load, and it only charges the bus when the load drops and we're not going to incur any additional demand charge. So it's smart software, and all you're doing is just lowering electricity costs.
I understand it. I understand the logic behind it. I'm concerned about how it may potentially block a electric school bus availability into a certain time because of the demand based on charges.
We control that.
I'm just, again, hypothetically speaking, we have a significant number of our buses that have electric, and we're on this solid where we have an emergency which requires us to swap the bus out. We don't have a bus that's charging. The time factor could be used. But otherwise, I understand the concept. It's a good idea. That's the only concern.
We'll also be looking, this is like an annual agreement, so we could be looking at this annually.
This is a 12-month agreement, so we can evaluate and see how it goes for the first 12 months, how much money did it save us, and there are real clauses in there. I think there's a 30 or 60 day limitation after our so it's not one of those 5-year agreements where we lock ourselves in for a good bit of time. It does give us, it's favorable to the district.
So it's pricing for software is per bus?
It's per charging station, which essentially we're going one-to-one bus to charging station, and it is per bus.
How many charging stations do we have? We have the 6.
The goal is to get 6 stations with 6 buses.
Was that included in the VW?
From our share of the cost share.
So there are a couple of prices on here. So the 2690 is, it says per month. Is that on top of the other amounts that are listed on the next page? The 4,000 and 2,400 to 1,900?
It should be about 500 a month, I believe, or 500. And to kind of put these numbers into perspective, our domain charge is $9.80 per kilowatt power. These chargers can draw close to 20 kilowatts a piece. So if you start doing the math, if you're not careful when you charge buses, you're going to incur significant costs. And so that kind of put that number into perspective for you all. Well,
Okay. 3, 4, 4. takes us to item F1A, approve daily education group proposal for math teacher coaching for weekly a motion for F1A. Questions, discussion?
So on October, at 14 October, we approved 25 days with the baby group for $35,000. And if I'm not mistaken, we also have approved St. Martin Upper, or maybe it was East Central Upper as a separate additional cost, plus the $712 now for Baby Upper and Baby Lower. Is there a difference between the district is giving and then the individual school?
So for these two that we're going to talk about, they're title money that the schools have that they can allocate towards what they need to target. And so for Band Move Upper, they wanted to target that, and Band Move Lower wanted to target ELA based off of the test data. The ones you're talking about, some of them are for coaching for administrators that we did at St. Martin. Some of them were for EL. So it's just different consultants to target the different needs of schools in question. Does that make sense?
So the book that Dr. Stripper gave us discusses in the first chapter that whenever we allocate monies for training or for software, for whatever, our goal is academic improvement or academic grades or maintaining academics if we are already at that high level. And so it discusses having a report presented so that you see a baseline before we get the training or the software or the whatever it may be. And then at 12 months, you receive an after report. You receive a report so that it shows where we were before and where we are once we have received all of this. Because the book is very interesting and it's got some good points. And we're really in a budget situation. So I would like to ask that, especially with the Bailey group, well, not just the Bailey group, also with software, that we do that. We get what's our goal? What are we going to see with the Bailey group? Because the Bailey group has been around for quite a while, and they've been in our schools for many, many years. Are we getting a return on our investment? Basically, is what we just need to be.
I can get you those reports. I think for the most part, the reports that you're talking about, we're looking at test data. So in the fall, we got our test data. They got their total allocation. Now they're trying to figure out how to best utilize those funds. So that's why they're targeting what they chose to go after, whether it was math or ELA. So the 12-month follow-up report would be our test results in the fall. We're only talking about 4 days at one school and 6 days at another. Title money it's not enough to give you a consultant for a longer period of time, just because consultants are expensive. In a perfect world, we would actually have those experts on our staff, in our curriculum department. We hope that that's the direction that we're going to move. But yeah, I can get you reports that the reasoning behind this and what we expect to see from it.
I think if it's okay with the board, I would like to ask that that's what we, whenever we approve software or we approve a special program or something like that if we approve it and we receive a report, 12 months, 6 months, however long it needs to be, and this is how the money impacted academic achievement.
And I can tell you that every time the consultants come, Bailey's is good, Kids First, the Excellence groups, all these different consulting groups that we use, they provide us with a report after each visit. I'll be more than happy to share the report with you.
I was going to point out that on the attachment to this agenda, on page number of districts that they partner with throughout the state. The 2020, 2021 scores, and 2022 scores, the difference between them, that includes Jackson County School District, for county board rating 685 last year to a 7. That's
If that's, and if that growth is for the schools, for the because we had significant growth in a couple of schools, and I don't understand the baby over there, but it could have been because of the ELL or federal programs, the 20 rankings. So could have been those.
And Nikki, this is a new initiative. Our test scores did drop in the EL, on the ELPT. We went from 42.2 to 40.3. However, we did have tremendous growth on the ELPT amongst our EL learners. I do think that we're trying to work towards, again, we've been transitioning that particular program since 2018 to make it a more credible program as accountability has been tied to the success of our EL students. And so we want to continue to move in the right direction to have certified teachers teaching a very concise curriculum that would meet the needs of our EL students. And so they are coming in. Actually, Gwen King was the one who wrote the 2018 MDE guidelines for the EL department. So she is an expert. So we have brought her in for this year, and we will then determine whether or not their scores improve and determine whether or not that particular group would be necessary for the upcoming year.
And I think it would be pretty easy to create some kind of a form or a template that we can use so that when we put in a request for a consultant, that we can kind of give you the data to go along with it, because the decisions at A&P Lower were all based off their data. So we could probably populate that into a simple form that goes along with the request.
That'd be perfect.
Discussion. Favor of 1A. Daily education group proposal for ELA math teacher coaching. Discussion. Favor? And item 3A. Approve Bob Hunt's presentation.
Could you explain this a little bit, just the attachment, the little volleyball tournament?
Volleyball tournament? For
Bob.
Presentation proposal, it listed in
Volleyball team speaker.
he's a speaker there's actually, volleyball, that may be, I guess,
it was probably.
what he's going to talk about. Basically, we get safe and healthy schools funding that we're required to spend. So the best way we can target groups of students is we're targeting all of the uppers, middle schools, and high school, with the exception of one of the schools. And so we have a schedule of presentations to where this Bob Holmes is going to come and present to the students. And it's related to safe and healthy schools. Volleyball, and Dr. Williams may have to chime in on this, volleyball may be his, give it the right.
Is that his pitch?
Yeah, his how he goes about bringing this in.
His title is a one-man volleyball team.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Again, in the line item says exhibition volleyball games plus speaking engagements.
Right. So at the very end of the his 4-day perusal through our district as he goes to all of our middle schools and uppers and high schools. He will then have, hopefully at maybe St. Martin High School, I think it's, he's already consulted St. Martin High School, they will actually have a volleyball game of some sort and presentation for the community to come and to participate as well. He has given us a very tremendous discount in order to outfit and support our mental health and safe and healthy schools program here in Jackson County. But it's not just volleyball alone. We actually had to have some very concrete evidence that he would address some of those mental health issues that plague some of our students, especially building up confidence and some other areas that I don't really want to, name out here. But, mental health issues would be an umbrella that encompasses what he plans to address.
So this would be targeted at all of our high school campuses?
It will actually be at our middle school, our uppers, and our high school. So he is going to, he targets grades third grade through the 12th grade. His message is geared towards students who have a little bit more cognitive development. And so I do think that he's going to, his program is going to address issues that students in middle school and in upper elementaries that they will face more so than students in our lower elementary schools. And the reason this particular item is on the board agenda, in order for us to obtain a check so that he can be paid when he attends, we were told, I know that I shared this with Mr. Pickett to make sure that this was, all of the paperwork was in order, and we only put it here so that we could obtain the check based off of information from our business office.
We actually have a schedule, it's a course of 4 days as to what schools they'll be at from January 10th through the 13th. So if you wanted that information, we'd be happy to get you that as well.
Sometimes that will kind of there to kind of give us these details. That's how it wasn't. So I just appreciate the elaboration. Okay.
This is two operations. GD1 construction. We have a construction.
I can talk about anything if you've got any questions. Mr. Baggett covered most everything, I think. But if you've got any other private questions.
Source order to top to design, build, bid, oversee the construction of JCSD projects. Motion for
Second.
Discussion.
What are our parameters for design and scope of this project?
Well, most of these Dr. Morgan already has, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Morgan, they have come from the state. For each program, what the programs will need as far as a building or facility goes. So a lot of that's already laid out. Both Dr. Morgan's ready to go as well as Brad. So the money is there, correct, Ryan? We've already received. So we're ready to go ahead and proceed with the next phase.
The only facility guide that is not available is the aquaculture program, so I'm modeling after Ocean Springs program. Very successful.
Yeah, MDE gives you, so if you've got automotive or heat and air or carpentry or welding, all those design guides are online, so they tell us how big it's got to be and what it's got to have in it.
Correction, the shipbuilding program is not in there. There is a curriculum, but not a facility guide for what it should look like. So we're kind of modeling after our AEST ag program with so many welding booths and so forth.
What is the timeline for this? Are there any time constraints that we're under for milestones?
But I don't know what English guidelines, restraints, like we have that split by.
No, if we don't have it spent by June 30th, then it'll go back to the legislature, they'll have to reappropriate it. But to my knowledge, the $6 million is we're entitled to, it's just the year in which it's spent.
This take care of the first $6 million.
We got $3 million, and we have another $3 million coming.
Okay.
All this action tonight would do is just authorize us to start the design process. So, you know, yeah, I mean, we'll have to talk to Dr. Morgan and see how we're going to, since this is at multiple campuses, we got to kind of figure out how the best way to bid this out is going to be. Is it going to be to break it up by campus or do it all as one? Those are just some things we've got to kind of talk through. But it sounds to me like you're certainly going to be going back to the legislature for reappropriation, because I don't see any way. I mean, we'll be doing good to get a bid back on construction by June 30th, much less be under construction and spending billions of dollars.
Since we only have half of the money at this time, I would suggest that we start at the Central and St. Martin projects and wait for the other second half of the money for the Van Cleef project. Or we could design.
Yeah, we could go ahead and design everything now. And thank y'all.
Thank you, Barry. Okay.
Item 1C, report the Central Literature Operating Foundation bid. Motion for G1C.
Motion. Second.
Should have gotten this memo from okay. When we were doing our tour today, we opened up bids, and Dr. Hassan was gracious enough to go ahead and put this in kind of a breakdown of it. And Ryan, David, and Wayne all worked on this in the rubric, and the bid, we feel comfortable with where it is from a price standpoint, what they're going to be doing, and the timeline in which they're doing it. As you can see, they have a lot of experience in this. So we are recommending that we send it.
So it looks like they will finish the foundation. Oh, in the bleacher install outward first.
Yes, it's our time.
Gotcha.
Weather permitting. But they are ready to start, as you can see on that, some 26 that we will start.
Questions? Favor? All right. Takes us to the 16th section. H2, approved request of portion of name to LLC to receive a resurvey of land and current lease. The rest of the plot property into parcels of land into two new leases. Place in current lease. Motion for H2. Motion by Ms. Dawes. Second by Mr. Hall. Jack.
Everyone surveyed the property, so they actually had two leases that we were making currently. They were both authorized for this survey. It'll enable them to make it easier for them to sell their building And I ran into the Secretary of State's office. Yeah. Do that, and the Secretary of State's office. They'll have a problem. Basically, it's the same time. So we're not going to do this. It's kind of a combination. Make it easier. Sell their property. The improvements on the
In addition to changing space, we just split the amount.
well, we will not receive less money than we did for the whole conference. It's one of the, so they receive more. It's just a combination. They want to build equipment before, they spend a bunch of money on research and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Capacity leases, what are we doing with capacity leases?
It's part of that to pursue it in 60 days with their tax due. Now, my understanding is probably not that habit was finding anybody to probably cancel that. 60 days.
I was just curious as to whether that's
Well, we write letters, and so far, most everybody's every once in a while, we have to cancel one. Usually, they come back after the fact.
they don't get notice of what they're just
Right, right, there's 60 days past due, the statute requires do something.
This is down to under travel, A5, approve travel to ETC conference. A5. Discussion.
Yes, so we are sending 8 teachers to the FTC conference using safe, drug-free money at a cost of $1,250 apiece. What is the plan for what they learn?
It's required that they have an implementation timeline of the information they bring back. They will have to share that information with the teachers on their particular campus. They are, I do believe, moving towards the ITCs, are moving towards having, one person at each campus who becomes an expert in instructional technology. So it is my understanding that this particular conference is designed to build capacity and efficacy within those ITCs or local school technology personnel, and then they are required to bring back information and then show systematically how they are implementing that, the information learned from that particular conference.
So the teachers going are the computer teachers?
Or whomever has been designated by that particular campus. I'm sorry.
No. There are teachers who have been identified as tech-savvy teachers who other teachers go to for technology advice in the classroom on the campus, as well as administrators kind of talk about them, and they've been identified by the instructional technology coordinator and specialist as being people who stand out when it comes to the implementation and use of technology in their classroom.
So I can speak to that just a minute too, because I'm sending actually Morgan Barco. She's my college and career teacher, and she's just tech savvy. And not only that, it's important that you pick someone that when they come back and do a PLC, because they will do block PLC, somebody that teaches well, and she teaches well, and she's a teacher of teachers. So that's why we're sending Ms. Marcos.
So, but don't we have, I guess I'm just a little unsure, we have tech people like Ms. Johnson, right? Why are we not sending them and then having them train the teachers instead of taking the teachers out of the classroom?
Well, in this particular case, one of the things that we found out when we went to the ISTE conference in New Orleans is that there's some things that you get with collaboration that an STC or an ITC just can't bring back. Does that make sense? The teachers being there and being able to see it and talk to our ITC saying, hey, you know what, this is something that we need, because they get to see it, they get to experience it, and they help us formulate a plan to implement that throughout the district. We work with curriculum on whether or not it fits, you know, what they want and all this kind of stuff. It helps having the teacher there. And I'm taking all this, I'm trying to speak for Brandy because Brandy handles this for me. She's not here tonight, but having that teacher there, getting to experience it themselves is invaluable. And when they come back, they can cheerlead it at their school and tell them and kind of on a personal level and do it. Does that make sense?
I just understand, you know.
It is.
As teachers, I get it. It's always more engaging when you go with a group, but we're looking at serious budget issues. And so when I look at,
Well, we do have, and so there's one of the rules of Title IV is that 15% of the money must be set aside to build technology efficacy amongst the, so I can't get around that 15%. It is designated for blended learning opportunities, for teacher mentoring, for technology initiatives. So I have to spend the money to build and to mentor our teachers in the realm of, as well as students. If you go into Title IV, you'll see that it's also building technology capacity amongst our students. So we set aside STEM money for these teachers as well. And STEM money so that our students can benefit from purchasing those new equipment that are required for the new technology standards. So 15% of that money is designated to build both teacher and student capacity. So I can't get around removing that money. And so when I spoke with the technology department and our ITC coordinator, moving towards having a designated person at each campus was the goal, so that that person could then go deeper into the trenches, whereas she's one individual. We have maybe, 3 of them from the top. These individuals are actually spearheading more or clearer focus on those initiatives that are in that particular school. So I don't know if that explains it any better, but I can't get away from that 15%. I have to designate it.
And this conference is in the summertime.
It is. So.
And you know, it's very difficult for Brandy, and Brandy's great. We love Brandy, but just for my campus alone, I have 107 staff members. It's very difficult for Brandy to get, you know, with the way technology is, we need a lot of hands-on. Brandy is one person. She cannot go to everybody. And not only that, some people will consider Brandy a little intimidating because she's just so bright when it comes to technology. When you have someone on your campus that you're familiar with, they speak your language, and they're a lot more willing to they're a lot more apt to go to someone and say, hey, can you show me that for the 15th time? They're not going to go to Brandy for the 15th time for the fear that they're going to look foolish.
And actually, the model that we're modeling here, we actually learned at an ISTE conference. And it's actually a model that Ocean Springs is putting into place, as well as several other school districts. And they say that it works phenomenal because you're not having somebody who's outside of your school community coming in, which, I mean, district office is. I mean, you're not in the schools every day, all day. Brandy's well received, so are our ITSs. But there's still a family orientation to the teachers here at this high school that, we don't really get into. And so the real push for this at these conferences was that you don't have to break into those communities from a district level. You pick somebody out who's already in there, you help train them, and then it blossoms from there. So what we're doing here is a tried and true method that we've actually seen. It's not something we just woke up one day and said, hey, let's try it. So.
Well, I think that to Ms. Pearson's point, I understand we have some training that we need to do. We have 15% constraints that we have to live by. I think that the board just wants to look at us in our current environment where we're looking at budget cuts, and the board would like to have at least some assurances that the travel that we are asked to approve is justified and necessary and doesn't become excessive. I think that's the point that we're at Ms. Peterson's.
Okay.
Sense.
And we can build out that data. So.
Consent to the consent. In favor? Four. Motion